According to a just released Royal LePage housing market forecast, home prices in Canada are going to end the year up 7%. Yes, you heard that right. Royal LePage is saying that home prices at the end of 2023 will be up 7%. Yeah, we need to talk about this one. This is the Bald Prairie Real Estate Weekly News Recap. My name's Matthew Pfeifer, real estate agent in Regina, Saskatchewan. That's my trusted assistant. It's Friday the 13th. I hope you're having a lucky Friday the 13th. This is where we go through the week's news and I give you my thoughts and opinions on it. We're going to be talking about how in Vancouver, they think they're going to make housing more affordable by adding more development fees onto the cost of building a house. That's a great idea. We're also going to be looking at two articles talking essentially about the same subject, and yet one will tell you that we've seen a big uptick in housing or in terms of houses being built, and the other one's going to tell you that we're seeing no investment in housing, and that's probably rather conflicting if you're to read these articles back to back. But of course, let's start off with another one of my terrible bad dad jokes. What wears a coat in the winter and pants in the summer? A dog. If you have a terrible joke that I can use in a future episode, put it in the comments below. Let's get into this week's news. This first article here is from CTV, and it's the federal government unlocking another $20 billion for low-cost rental construction. Now, I find it really interesting that they're using the term unlocking an additional $20 billion in funding. It makes you think the federal government is putting $20 billion into getting more rental housing built. They're really not. They're providing an additional $20 billion, or should I say allowing CMHC to provide an additional $20 billion in loans to the private sector to get rental housing built. CMHC actually has a really good funding program that used to be better. They made it worse. That was very attractive to get purpose-built rentals off the ground. They've made that program less attractive because it was almost too good for the people that were taking advantage of it. It was getting housing built. So they kind of made that program not quite as attractive. But now the federal government is acting like they're providing $20 billion for additional rental housing. They're providing an additional $20 billion in loans. Previously, CMHC was capped at $40 billion. Now they can loan out up to $60 billion. So I'm happy that there's the opportunity here to see more rental housing being built. But it's not really the federal government providing $20 billion in assistance to get these projects built. It's just more loans they're handing out. Next up is a proposal from municipal governments in the Vancouver area, and they're going to make housing more affordable by increasing development fees 240% over the next few years. Again, this is a proposal. This has not been voted on, and it's not for sure happening. But I just think it's really interesting, and I've been talking about this for a while. We need to get governments taking less development fees and less taxes. And it was great to see the federal government remove GST on purpose-built rentals. I wish they did it on all residential construction, but at least that's a start. And then, of course, the Vancouver area governments decide, you know what, let's add more taxes on because that will get more houses built and make them absolutely more affordable. Please catch the sarcasm there. But I'm not the only one that noticed this. Of course, it's in the news here. In fact, the federal government wasn't very happy about this either, and they are withholding funds for their housing accelerator fund for these Vancouver area governments until this gets looked at again. And I'm happy that that's what the federal government is doing, because we can't have the federal government, who is part of the problem. Let's not let them off the hook here, but they're doing at least something to reduce fees. And then now we've got municipal governments making it harder and more expensive to get housing built. This next article here is talking about how much more popular assumable mortgages have become. Now, this is something I've started to see in my market a little bit, but I know it's happening a lot more in other areas like Toronto, and it's assumable mortgages. So for those that don't know what it is, essentially the seller saying to the buyer, you can assume my existing mortgage, take it over, and there'll be whatever proceeds are paid out to the seller as part of the sale. So the seller walks away from the mortgage and they're going to get some sort of sale price out of this. For the buyer, this has a couple of advantages. You will potentially get a very low rate that the seller already has from a mortgage from a few years ago, and you're not having to go out and get a loan at a higher interest rate and qualify to all those rates. So it's kind of a win-win. The seller gets out of the property and the buyer gets into this property, hopefully with a more attractive mortgage, potentially a smaller mortgage. It's kind of a win-win for both. And I expect that we're going to see this for a little bit here while we still have some sellers with really low mortgages But as soon as those start running out and neighbors had to go and renew, I think you're going to see a decline in the popularity of assumable mortgages. Now I'm going to combine these next two articles together. I'm going to show you the headlines back to back here, because if you read these back to back, you'd probably be a little bit confused. The first one's out of BNN, and they're talking that housing starts up in the first half of 2023, especially in apartments, offsets the declines, and they're saying that housing starts are up, according to CMHC. The next article here is from the Toronto Star saying Canada's building fewer homes today than during the 2020 lockdowns, and the worst is yet to come. So here we have two articles that came out essentially at the same time, talking about the same subject, and yet have two completely different headlines. The first one is talking about CMHC's tracking of housing starts. The second one is talking about dollars invested. So there's a couple of things here that are a problem. First of all, CMHC's housing starts is a rolling number. So this will blend multiple months together to give that rolling number. You'll see it released in a month, say 225,000 housing starts. That's not in that month. That's what they're projecting will be started over the course of the year. So 225,000. That's what we see. 220 to about 300,000 houses built in Canada in a very busy year. The next article is talking about investment in construction. So that is people going and getting construction loans and actually building houses. And yes, we are seeing the number of dollars being put into housing declining. And simply because we are going to see those CMHC housing stats dropping because the fact there are fewer houses that are getting built, mainly because it's so much more expensive to finance projects. There are many projects that are being put on the shelf or canceled entirely because the cost of construction with the cost of carrying much higher interest rates on mortgages right now for construction financing simply makes these projects untenable. They're no longer a project that actually is going to make the developer money. So yeah, both these articles have grains of truth to them, but really both of them are kind of inaccurate as well. And that's why I like to do these breakdowns, to kind of let you know what's going on behind the curtain here. Because if you just read one headline or the other, you maybe won't have the full picture of what's going on. Now let's talk about Royal LePage's housing market forecast. Royal LePage does these housing market forecasts every quarter, and they update their housing market forecast based on the information that's available to them. Forecasts should change as the information changes. That's why I say, please don't base your decision to buy a house on a forecast coming true, because you no longer have a plan to buy a house at that point. You have a hope of buying a house. Basing your decision to buy a house on a plan being right is never a good idea. That's why I always say with these housing market forecasts, please take them as entertainment and with a grain of salt. You buy a house when it's right for your own personal situation. I've talked about that at length. Let's get into what Royal LePage is saying here. The headlines are going to say that year over year, home prices are going to end up 7% higher than 2022. And year over year is the important wording here, because they're saying versus last year. They're not saying the home prices are going to increase from where they are today up 7%. And that's the important thing here to know, because last year home prices were declining. So for example, we just said home prices for the rest of the year are going to stay the same. They're not going to change at all. We would actually see year over year home prices would be up about 8 to 9%. That's because home prices were dropping last year. So with Royal LePage saying that home prices are going to be up 7%, they're essentially saying that home prices are going to continue to decline through the remainder of the year. But because of how much they declined last year, it's still going to be year over year increase of 7%. So no, your house is not going to be worth 7% more from today going to the end of the year, according to Royal LePage. It's a little bit of a misleading headline. Yes, I know, I used it in the title of this video, using the title of the short I did for this as well. It's designed to get people's attention and get them reading. You also probably saw the other side of the headlines here, which was that Royal LePage downgraded its forecast. And yes, they did that as well. Last quarter, they were expecting home prices to end the year up 8.5%. So they've downgraded it, saying it's only going to be up 7%. Again, this is all in relation to December 2022 prices. Along with this report and all the other news articles, I will link this in the description below so you guys can read through it, because they do break down the specific regions as to what they think is going to happen in those house prices. Of course, Calgary continues to be the outlier, where they're expecting a much stronger market than many other places like Toronto and Vancouver. But I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Year over year, where a home price is going to be at the end of December 2023. And if you are thinking about buying a house, if you're in Regina, of course, I would love to be able to help you out. But if you're buying a house somewhere else in Canada and you don't have a great real estate agent, I can help you out. I've got a great network of real estate agents across the country I know can help you find that perfect house. In the description of this video, right below here, there's a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a call. I'm going to call you, learn about what's important to you in a house, what's important to you in a real estate agent, and get you paired up with that perfect agent. I've also got a playlist right here for first-time homebuyers so you can learn more about the process of buying a house. If you love this video, please give this video a like, subscribe to Bald Prairie Real Estate if you love keeping up to date with the Canadian real estate market, leave some comments below so we can chat in the comments section, and as always, thanks very much for watching.